Recent operations saw thousands of South Vietnamese families moved into militia-controlled fortified villages as part of the Strategic Hamlet Resettlement Program. However, Viet Cong have infiltrated several of these South Vietnamese hamlets, killed their leaders, and seized control. We need to support the South Vietnamese Air Force in wiping out these VC-controlled hamlets. For the first part of this operation, we'll soften up their defenses with airstrikes, ready for an assault with light tanks and infantry.
Dear Joe, too bad there was no time for you to come home and say goodbye. I was so excited to hear that you've been transferred to Vietnam to support our fight for democracy, and I wanted to shake your hand. I've told all my friends that my brother's gonna fight in Vietnam. Some of them said that we shouldn't be dictating how other nations are run, but I know they're wrong, and that we're doing the right thing. Mother is worried about you, and she sends kisses. But she is sure our father would be proud of you should he be with us still. God bless his soul. Lisa was here yesterday bringing me your old textbooks. Zoe was helping, and she was very proud too, telling everyone she was helping Uncle Nee learn. After finishing college, I want to be just like you but on the ground. It's the Marines for me. You take care and kick some commie asses. Your brother, Neil.
Airstrikes on the VC-controlled hamlets were successful. Their defensive fortifications have been severely damaged, and now the ground attack must commence. South Vietnamese light tanks and infantry are already on their way to the hamlets. We will provide air support to ensure their success. But be careful. AA defenses are still active in the area, so we'll need to prioritize these when spotted.
I wonder how much good it does, rounding up these scattered communities, uprooting families and farmers, and moving them into these supposedly secure hamlets. None of them thanked us for it. None of them wanted it. It's this kind of erosion of society that makes individuals stand and fight, to protect and cling on to what they hold dear. But with the threat of communism looming over us, we must make hard choices and follow them through, whatever the consequences, for the greater good. People will see this, must see this, in the future.
After successful experimentation with chemical defoliants, the President has authorized full-scale use of Agent Purple to clear the jungle and make the countryside safer for our troops. Jungle and forested areas are excellent hideouts for Viet Cong soldiers. If we wipe out the forest, then our ground forces will get the advantage and the VC will be no match for us in direct combat. Your C-123 will be accompanied by a fighter escort in case of trouble. Remember our motto, only you can prevent forests.
Resettling communities is one thing, but now here we are, dropping foul chemicals all over the jungle. Fighting trees instead of communists? Using chemicals to destroy the land seems like something you would denounce your opponent for. It's just not right. Still, I see the reasoning behind it. We deny our enemy their crops and their hiding places in the dense foliage. We make the jungle safer for our troops. I just hope that we don't turn this beautiful country into a wasteland before we're done.
Our intelligence has identified a Viet Cong transmitter in the hamlet of Ap Tan Toi, supported by a force of around 120 men. AVRN 7th Infantry Division, accompanied by 13 M113 APCs, are on site and ready to make a surprise strike against the target. 2 rifle companies will be dropped into the battlefield by the boys from 93rd Transportation Company. They won't stand a chance against our combined forces.
My love, I miss you terribly. I still think of the nights you spent at home before you were reassigned. Zoe celebrated her birthday in style yesterday. We celebrated together with Neil and your mom. It was very nice, but we missed you a lot. Neil starts preparations for his final year in college soon, and I'm sure he'll do real well with all the work he's doing. Your mom's not really talking much and seems pretty worried. I'm not sure if that's about you, or rather about Neil's intention to follow in your footsteps. She certainly doesn't want to lose both of her sons to the war. I hope this war ends quickly and you're back with us soon. Stay safe, my love. With deepest love, Lisa and Zoe.
Despite Laos's declared neutrality, there are around 6,000 Viet Cong troops positioned in eastern Laos. The United States is covertly supporting the western part of the country in their fight against communism. But with North Vietnam expanding their logistic corridor, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, we are left with few options. We must intervene before the Viet Cong's control of the area becomes too dominant. However, given Laos's neutrality, this operation is in direct violation of the Geneva Convention. Therefore, it is classified and top secret. Revealing this operation would do major damage to the international reputation of the U.S. Thanks to your previous performance and reports from senior officers, you have been selected to be part of Operation Barrel Roll. Your primary goal is to eliminate ground targets in the area and disrupt enemy supply routes.
My dearest son, I hope Asia is treating you well. I know I haven't been in touch for a long, long time, but I suffer with the fear of your absence. I listen to all the news from Vietnam, and it fills me with worry. There's a lot of news about the conflict on the radio every day, and much of it is very scary. I live in fear of the doorbell, as I worry an officer with bad news might be calling. I know these times are hard on everyone, but I'm so scared of losing you. Neil is very proud of you and wants to join the Marines. I cannot forbid him to sign up, but maybe you can convince him not to. Please do your best to convince him not to go to Vietnam. I cannot lose both of you in war. Please forgive your mother for worrying. It is a mother's role to worry, and this war has me convinced that I will lose both you and Neil. Please be careful. Your beloved mother.
The USS Maddox reports that she has been attacked by North Vietnamese torpedo boats. You are immediately dispatched to defend her at all costs. Destroy the attacking boats and protect the Maddox. Dismissed. The incident in the Gulf of Tonkin took place on August 2nd, 1964. Intelligence reported a similar attack 2 days later, which was eventually revealed to be false. However, President Lyndon B. Johnson, perhaps still trying to make his mark on an electorate grieving for JFK, addressed the nation on August 4th. He reported the attacks and requested the authority to undertake a military response. On August 7th, Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, which granted President Johnson the authority to conduct military operations in Southeast Asia. Johnson's false testimony in Congress escalated the situation and resulted in a military conflict which cost the lives of 50,000 U.S. military personnel, over 2 million Vietnamese, and immense material damage to Southeast Asia. This mission is a retaliatory strike for the attack on USS Maddox. 3 other squadrons are attacking other North Vietnamese targets. Our goals are the oil storage facilities in the provincial city of Vinh. Due to the nature of the target, we can expect heavy resistance, both from the ground and in the air. But we intend to deploy our ordnance and show the Vietnamese our strength. Give them hell.
My dearest, thank you for your letter. I understand the situation must be really bad there. It was terrible to hear how your wingman was lost during that flight. We hear a lot of similar stories on the TV and radio, and we pray every day that God saves you from their bullets. I spoke to your mom yesterday evening on the phone. She sounds so tired. You should send her more letters. I don't think she is sleeping well. Now that Neil has nearly finished college, she's worried about what he'll do afterwards. We have new neighbors. Nice couple. He is leaving for Vietnam next week, so I'll have a kindred soul nearby. Well, take care, my darling. Kisses from Zoe and myself. Only yours, Lisa.
Those sneaky Viet Cong have attacked Camp Holloway near Pleiku, killing 8 of our fellow pilots and injuring over 100 other U.S. soldiers, as well as destroying and damaging multiple aircraft. A retaliatory strike has been approved by President Johnson. Our forces take off from USS Hancock and USS Coral Sea. Our targets are the barracks at Vit Tu Lu and the port of Dong Hoi, just north of the 17th parallel. Hit them hard and show no mercy.
Dear Joe, I got my results back yesterday. I passed! First thing this morning, I was at the USMC recruiting station and have signed on the dotted line to become a Marine. I ship out on Monday for recruit training at Paris Island. I was a bit nervous about the training, but the recruiter told me I looked like I would ace it. I imagine we might even see each other. Your Navy and I'll be Marine. We're practically the same. Marines get deployed from Navy aircraft a lot. There were loads of great guys joining up at the same time as me, so I'll be in good company. Mom has been crying and begging me not to sign up. I had to lie to her to get her to leave me alone yesterday after my results were posted. Can you write her and explain that I need to follow in yours and Father's footsteps? Nothing else feels right. I'll write to you from Paris Island. Brothers, almost in arms. Neil.
Tan Hoa Bridge is an important strategic route for VC supplies and reinforcements, but it is well defended. Intel reports multiple VC anti-air regiments stationed in the area, but our objective is clear. The bridge must fall.
Daddy, I can write. Mommy has let me write this letter on my own. Mom says I am getting very good at writing. Beth's dog-head puppies, and now all my friends have them too. Can I have a puppy, Daddy? Mom says I have to ask you, but I will look after it and go for walks and pet her. Mom says you will be home at Christmas and that I might see Santa Claus if I am a good girl and do well at school. Please don't hurt anyone nice. Love, Zoe.
For action for months, keeping our MiGs out of combat, practicing new tactics, and studying American flight patterns. On August 23, 1967, we were ready at last. That day, you and your pilots entered our territory near Hanoi. We scrambled to our MiGs. The older MiG-17s approached you directly, while the MiG-21 interceptors stayed out of sight, gaining altitude. As the interceptors reached their position, above and beyond your planes, the MiG-17s launched their attack. That attack from the MiG-17s was the bait to split your formation, to separate the bombers from their escort. It worked. Your fighters were drawn away, leaving the bombers vulnerable to a greater threat.
This is a preemptive strike against regional VC forces to nullify the threat they pose to our Chu Lai base. Several U.S. Marine battalions have been deployed with the USS Galveston and USS Cabildo to provide naval gunfire support. Reports indicate that the enemy has around 1,500 men and is backed by several mortar units. Your role in this operation is to transport the troops and provide fire support to the Marines until they have cleared the area of enemies. The infantry will be depending on our air support, so stay alert.
What are we fighting here? Farmers? Peasants? These people, who can barely scrape enough from the land to get by, are the biggest threat to our country right now? We bomb their homes, burn their trees, destroy their crops, and this will persuade them that the mighty democracy of the US of A is fighting for their future? We are strangers in a strange land. We cannot dictate to these people how they should live. And we shouldn't oppress them with our weapons. This conflict seems wrong. Either someone has made a huge mistake or, well, I don't even want to think about the alternative.
Our naval forces have been consolidating around the Mekong Delta for months now. The Viet Cong have multiple small ports located in this area, and the goal of this operation is to completely deny the VC access to these resources. Our primary goal is to trial special illumination bombs to blind the enemy and prevent them from returning fire on our forces, which will also provide cover for Navy SEALs to infiltrate the port and plant explosive charges. The VC ain't gonna like that.
My son, the nightmares that have plagued me when your father left for war have returned. I lived on after your father left us, bringing up 2 lovely sons. But for what? So I could lose them in another senseless war? Am I so cursed to lose all my family to wars then? Would that have managed to stop you from joining the Navy? Then certainly Neil would not have followed in your footsteps. It falls to you now to tell Neil the truth of it, and that to be a man does not mean to kill others. I am sure that he will listen to you as he did while growing up. Without your father, he only had eyes for you, and I am certain that if you could make him understand, he would stay at home and do the right thing. I pray that you talk to Neil and convince him not to leave. Lots of love, Mom.
Our reconnaissance units operating south of the demilitarized zone report an increasing number of North Vietnamese army in the area. Captured NVA soldiers confirmed that there are 2 enemy regiments in the area with the aim of liberating Quang Tri province. Operation Hastings has been authorized. Its objective is to drive back the NVA forces. Our role is to clear the area with napalm, transport Marines to the landing zones, and then support them against NVA resistance. Good luck!
The brass says we're doing well, but it doesn't feel that way. We outclassed the enemy, but each time we pin them down, they disappear. We bombard their emplacements, charge their positions, but when we get there, they're gone, leaving empty bunkers and minimal casualties. How can we fight like this? We're already fighting the jungle and the terrain, and now we fight an enemy that appears, attacks, and is gone before we can react. How can we fight ghosts?
You have been seconded to this classified mission because of your superior performance in air-to-air combat. Enemy aircraft have become a major nuisance to our bombers. So to counter this threat, we have planned Operation Bolo. You will take the place of our bombers, following their usual route and using their regular formation as bait. Your goal is to counter the intercepting MiG-21s, which will no doubt appear. They will be expecting the significantly less dangerous F-105, but they will instead encounter your fully air combat armed F-4 Phantoms, equipped with AIM-9 Sidewinders. Hit them hard and show them that they are no match for the USAF's air superiority.
Dear Joe, nothing any of us has said has had any effect, and now Neil has left for Vietnam with the Marines. I was still praying you had managed to get him deployed somewhere safer. But now, fate has both my boys in Asia, in the middle of who knows what. I spend my days praying for you both, that you come home and get to enjoy your families. Your father would be very proud, I think, but all I can do is weep, with fear that I will never see you again. Surely you have been in the Navy long enough to get Neil sent somewhere less dangerous. Lisa has taken me to the meeting with the other women who have loved ones in Vietnam, but I don't understand the way they can be so lighthearted. They seem to believe everything will be okay, but I cannot stand to see them so. I will only be happy when the war has finished and I am allowed to hug my boys to my bosom. All my love, Mom.
First Marine Regiment has been assigned a seek and destroy mission in Quay Son Valley. Communist forces are firmly established with at least 2 enemy regiments entrenched in the area. But the region is strategically important to MACV, so we must clear them out. Foxtrot Company will act as bait. They've left their outpost and moved to the nearest enemy-held village where they ran into heavy enemy fire. Now that the NVA forces have been located, we can bombard their position with artillery, deliver reinforcements, and hit them hard from the air.
My dear brother, our unit has finally been deployed to Vietnam. We are currently based at Camp Carroll. I've seen several Phantoms flying over us, headed north, and I wondered if you might have been flying one. Our lieutenant said that we'll be moved to a hot zone shortly after we acclimate. I'm so excited about being able to take down some of those commie boudoirs and help win this war. Brother in arms, Neil.
Meanwhile, we have been concentrating our bombing raids on rail targets to eliminate transport routes between China and Hanoi. But the North Vietnamese have constructed several alternative rail yards to minimize the effect of our strikes. One of these rail yards is at Yen Bien, located around 36 miles north of Hanoi. A previous attack destroyed approximately half of the boxcars in the rail yard and left the remainder trapped. Your objective is to finish the job by destroying the remaining boxcars along with their shipment. After Operation Bolo, the North Vietnamese Air Force ceased their activities and all but grounded their MiGs. They tried to challenge our forces a few times after, but each time they failed and suffered huge losses. Our airstrikes have been able to continue with only light resistance from ground-based air defenses. Meanwhile, we have been concentrating our bombing raids on rail targets to eliminate transport routes between China and Hanoi. But the North Vietnamese have constructed several alternative rail yards to minimize the effect of our strikes. One of these rail yards is at Yen Bien, located around 36 miles north of Hanoi. A previous attack destroyed approximately half of the boxcars in the rail yard and left the remainder trapped. Your objective is to finish the job by destroying the remaining boxcars along with their shipment.
My dear, we've just heard about you being MIA for several days. That must have been horrific. How scared you must have been. The Navy man who visited us assured us you were okay and that there were no lasting injuries. Please write us soon and tell us you're okay. Apart from that, we've been hearing lots of positive things on the newsreels recently. Sounds like you might be packing up to come home soon. We are very excited and listen for news of your company's redeployment whenever possible. I think they should let you come home after your ordeal. Mom is especially excited, saying that Neil will miss combat action if the war ends soon. I think she would rather have you all under her apron strings again. She has been baking apple pies like there were hungry people everywhere. Everyone nearby is stuffed full of them. Zoe had her first taste of the hospital last week. She had a fever, and the doctor told us to get her checked in at St. Mary's. They kept her in, and she was given some antibiotics. I was worried they might charge too much for the pills, but your military benefits were useful for once. There was no charge, and Zoe was better within 2 days. I'm sending a picture that Zoe drew of the view from her hospital bed. Lots of love, Lisa and Zoe.
Knowledge is power. Intelligence and surveillance is the key to modern warfare. On that basis, we have developed acoustic sensors which can detect nearby enemies and reveal their positions and movement. Our objective is to place these sensors in the area of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, near the Laotian border. We know the Viet Cong is getting reinforcements from this area. If we can identify exactly where they are, then we can strike precisely and eliminate them before they even reach our position.
Moved up to the front lines. Yesterday, I was involved in a short-range recon and even fired at the enemy. I'm claiming a kill, but we never actually saw any bodies. It was spooky how they managed to clear out before we got to their hole. The guys seem here a mix, from spaced-out guys on their second tours to FNGs like me. They say it like they hate me, but I think they're just jealous because I still have clean socks to wear. I don't mind, because we're both here in Vietnam dispensing justice to those who oppose freedom. How can the commies not be worried now? Be lucky. Neil.
The sensors you deployed have picked up PAVN forces moving towards the base at Khe Sanh, one of our primary surveillance outposts and a key jump-off point for future incursions into Laos. It is imperative that we retain this position. Infantry around the base has already been reinforced, but we need to bomb the enemy position ASAP, or we face losing the base. The weather isn't ideal for it, but we cannot delay. You're going to have to rely on information from Battlefield Command to get the ordnance on target. Don't expect to get a good visual through all that cloud. Top secret. There are concerns that we may not be able to hold this position with conventional airstrikes. If this is the case, Command is seriously considering the use of tactical nuclear weapon. We cannot afford to lose this outpost.
My dear, I read your last mail together with Zoe. She heard about the My Lai massacre on the radio, and they discussed it at school. She's asking some very hard questions. Like, why are you killing Vietnamese children? Aren't they just like she is? It was very difficult to stop her asking, since I certainly don't have the answers. Zoe wants to go on some of the marches that have been starting to get more and more popular. She says the people running the meetings are nice and easy to talk to. I said, I might take her if she's good and does her homework. Maybe she can find some answers from those people rather than worrying me with them. It's been a long time since your last leave. This war seems to have no end. It's not only lives that this war takes, but also families. I know you have your sense of duty, but Zoe has grown up now from the little girl who you used to bounce upon your knee. She is that girl no longer, but a young woman finding her way in the world. She barely knows you. Well, I hope you'll be able to come home soon for the holiday that you promised, and that I still recognize you. Be careful. Lisa and Zoe.
There was a prior agreement to cease fire during the Tet Lunar New Year's celebration. However, the treacherous commies have broken the ceasefire and started a massive offensive early this morning. They have launched a wave of attacks across South Vietnam, striking at over 100 cities, including the capital, Saigon. So far, this appears to be the largest military operation attempted by North Vietnam. Our intelligence did not expect the enemy to be capable of such a large-scale operation as this so-called general offensive and uprising. Their primary objective seems to be Saigon, and fortunately, we've been able to redeploy 15 battalions to this area. It seems that the VC commanders are focusing on 4 main targets: the radio station, our embassy, AVRN headquarters, and Independence Palace. You need to deliver our Marines to the hot zones, defend them, and recapture any locations that fall to the enemy.
Dear Father, I have learned that the illegal military occupation of Vietnam is based upon what they call anti-communist doctrine and has nothing to do with protecting the United States. Did you know this? Do your leaders tell you why you are there? Why they ask you to kill the farmers and the poor people you attack? Mom says you used to be a nice man and that she never believed you could turn into someone who could do the things we see on the news every day. The things reported by other countries because our leaders are too scared to admit they are wrong. You must see that the occupation is evil, so why are you still there? I have started meeting up with some other people who all believe the occupation is illegal, and we are peacefully making our ideas known. We bake cakes and sing songs and walk through town waving our banners and chanting about leaving Vietnam. Please, come home and stop killing people. Love, Zoe.
Urgent. We've received an urgent communication from Long Vây Camp. They are under heavy attack from NVA forces, and it is of the highest priority that we support them immediately. U.S. and South Vietnamese forces are under attack by NVA tanks and infantry. Our artillery is already launching an attack to cover our boys, with an airstrike to follow. We need to prevent the NVA from capturing Long Vây Camp, no matter what the cost.
My dear son, since I waved goodbye to Neil, I have been all alone at home. There's no reason to get up, no one to cook and care for. I feel so useless. I wish you had managed to convince Neil to stay at home, but he is too much like you and your father before you. Is it too much to ask that a mother keep at least one son at home? I heard that because your father died in service, that you could choose not to enter the military. You could use this as a reason to come home, or maybe get Neil to return. All my love, Mom.
We have captured documents which indicate that the 29th PAVM Regiment, nicknamed Ho Chi Minh's Pride, is located in a valley near the Laotian border. Our goal is to eliminate the enemy presence in the area. We need to deliver Marines to the area and provide them with sufficient firepower and air support to overcome any enemy resistance. Hamburger Hill was a disaster, but it was not an isolated incident. Battling the elusive VC in the jungles was taking its toll in lives as well as morale and material. Defoliation attempts with Agents Orange, Pink, and Purple were not as effective as planned. While the U.S. military leadership were creating sound bites for the Johnson administration about being at the point in the war where the end comes into view, the North launched the Tet Offensive, their largest attack to date. When news of this massive surprise attack on many South Vietnamese cities with mass murder of civilians was broken to the U.S. populace, they were outraged that their leaders had been so wrong about the state of the war. We have received authorization to bomb communist forces located in South Vietnam, near the Cambodian border. Our B-52s will take off tonight and deliver their payload in the early morning, just in time for breakfast. The target is an area reported by our intelligence as a major NVA base. Group Forward Air Controllers of the MACV will provide damage assessment following the mission. Dismissed.
I have forgotten why we are fighting this so-called war. We are far from home in a place most Americans can't point to on a map. We are apparently fighting for the safety of our future. Yet our enemy are mainly farmers who believe in sharing. We are the best trained, best educated troops on this planet. Yet we have spent years failing to best this small third world country. They have some support, of course, like the MiGs they use in astonishingly successful guerrilla attacks. But in the end, we shouldn't be struggling this hard. Is it because we don't know why we're fighting? Is it because we're far from home? Far from the places we left our hearts? If we were fighting to protect those we hold dear, would we struggle like this? Will we even have those we hold dear after fighting in this war?
PAVN have launched a massive offensive in the demilitarized zone, targeted at Saigon, Central Highlands, and Kon Tum. If they capture Kon Tum, they will cut South Vietnam in half. They are supported by T-54 tanks, superior to any tanks available to the AVRN. Early this morning, Fire Support Base Delta was attacked, and it's inevitable that these attacks will spread to other targets soon. We need to provide air support to FSB Delta. PAVN have launched a massive offensive in the demilitarized zone, targeted at Saigon, Central Highlands, and Kon Tum. If they capture Kon Tum, they will cut South Vietnam in half. They are supported by T-54 tanks, superior to any tanks available to the AVRN. Early this morning, Fire Support Base Delta was attacked, and it's inevitable that these attacks will spread to other targets soon. We need to provide air support to FSB Delta.
Hey, Joe. Now I know why veterans don't talk much. I never expected it could be this bad. And every week brings some new atrocity. I wanted to serve my country, but the things they make us do will haunt me for as long as I live. When people tell you not to go to war, you think it is for their sake, that they do not want to be left alone. But now I know that it's for our sake they do this. I wish I could bring back Father, and you, and all of us be sat around the dinner table together. Nobody deserves to experience this. I only pray you have not had it so bad. Neil.
The PAVN has quickly recovered from their defeat and are pushing forward again in superior numbers. AVRN forces were attacked this morning, and 53rd Division has been pushed from their position. Our air support is needed to keep Kon Tum out of communist hands. The PAVN have the advantage of numbers, so we need to cooperate closely with AVRN forces to win this battle.
Joe, I received a visit from Colonel Mayweather yesterday. He and a nice female Marine came to tell me that Neil was lost in combat. The colonel said that Neil served with distinction and that I should be proud. So why is it that all I feel is pain? I wish you could have convinced Neil not to join the Marines. And now there is another hole in my life where a man should be. Colonel Mayweather has informed me that you have been given a chance to come home as a part of something called the Sole Surviving Son, when your commanding officer told you about Neil, and that you had declined. I cannot believe it. Haven't you done enough? Isn't it time for you to come home and protect your family? I don't think Lisa or Zoe will understand your decision, as I know I do not. Please, come home. I need you. Mom.
top secret. SEAL Team 1 has been sent out to rescue 2 POWs escaping from Hanoi. However, strong currents have taken them off course, and they have been forced to scuttle their SDV and abort the mission. Their emergency signal indicates that they are several miles off the coast in the Gulf of Tonkin. We must go and rescue them.
Dear Joe, frankly, I cannot believe that you have refused the right to come home after Neil's death. Your family needs you now more than ever, yet you offer us no support. What right have you to expect us to wait here and welcome you home if you ever decide to return? Your poor mother, she's in pieces. She thinks you're as good as dead, which, on top of losing Neil, has broken her heart. She's hardly eating and refuses to go out at all. Do you realize you are basically killing her with this attitude? What are you thinking? Zoe thinks your actions mean that she has to demonstrate with the anti-war people. She's staying out late at night, and she won't tell me what she's been doing. She's growing into a wild child without a father to help keep her in line. What will you do when you lose her too? Ask your commanding officer to let you come home on the sole surviving son ticket, and we can all try and get along. Please, if not for me, then for Zoe and your mom's sake. Regards, Lisa.
We have now been authorized to use the full power of our Air Force, and so B-52s will be allocated to the sorties from here on in. We will eliminate all important targets in North Vietnam. We have to convince the North Vietnamese to return to the negotiating table after the recent breakdown of the Paris peace talks. Your present mission is to bomb the airport at Kep, the warehouse complexes at Yen Vien, and the broadcasting facility of Radio Hanoi. Further strategic targets will be selected every day. Strong resistance is expected, but we shall crush them all before us until they are forced to negotiate.
Dear Joe, please find enclosed divorce papers, which I want you to sign and return. It was the last straw when you chose to stay there and do the things you do. There was no excuse for staying in another country, killing farmers when your family needed you. Lisa.
As the NVA draw ever closer to Saigon, a mass evacuation of orphans from South Vietnam to the U.S. and other countries has been announced. We must collect and deploy the children to Saigon's Tan Son Nhat Airport, from where they will be transported by military cargo plane to their new families in the U.S. We saved the Vietnamese children from NVA forces. New families are awaiting the children in the U.S. and other countries. Take off in the C-123 and transport the children to their new homes and safety.
It has been heartening to be part of something that felt so positive. It's been some time since I felt so much good come from something in this jungle. We've managed to move thousands of kids from orphanages to homes in the U.S., bringing love into the lives of kids who've had little to look forward to. It also feels like we're giving something, however small, to the future of these people. Despite the good feeling, the thought of that first flight makes my eyes moisten, thinking about those little kids in that plane as it went down. But we must look forward, and my mind turns to Zoe, my daughter, now a woman, who I hope to come to know again.
The Khmer Rouge are concentrating all their forces on Phnom Penh, the last bastion of the Khmer Republic. It will undoubtedly fall under enemy control within the next few hours. So an evacuation of all U.S. military personnel and the Cambodian leaders has been ordered. LZ Hotel, approximately 900 meters from the U.S. Embassy, has been selected for the evacuation choppers, as it has no direct visibility from the river, which is under Khmer Rouge control. The LZ will be secured by Company G until the evacuation is complete.
As well as those who gave their lives, this war has cost the rest of us dear as well. We are dismantling our bases and evacuating, but we are basically handing the South over to the NVA and their allies. I've spent over 15 years here, serving my country, all in the name of democracy and the fight against the Red Threat. I was proud serving my country when I first came to Vietnam. I knew bad things could happen in wars, but the last 15 years has left me convinced that wars are fundamentally wrong. I have given everything. I have seen others give their all. My country has given its all. And we have nothing at all to show for it. I've lost my brother, my wife, maybe my mother and daughter too. Is it some irony that I survived to see the futility of it all? Can I look into Lisa's eyes and tell her that I was right to stay in the Navy and fight? I told her I was fighting for her, for Zoe. No one cares that we are coming home. Newsreels here show vets being spat on and shouted at as they return. How can my country have let me down? Can I even go back home now?
Saigon is besieged by the NVA, and an evacuation of the city is imminent. All of the Navy's Task Force 76 has been allocated to assist with this. Fixed-wing evacuation ceased today at 0700, and Operation Frequent Wind, the helicopter evacuation of Saigon, has started.
My dear son, I heard in the news that the war is finally at an end. Does this mean you can finally come home? I was depressed and am sorry I said those horrid things. Please come back to me. You are my only son and I love you. Zoe still needs a father, no matter what happens between you and Lisa. It's time to come back and rebuild your family. Please return home as soon as you can. Be careful. All my love. Mom.
Joe returned home at the end of 1975. The Paris Peace Accords, signed in 1973, effectively ended the U.S. military involvement in Vietnam, though financial support remained. Nixon implied military help would again be offered to South Vietnam if the North attacked, but the Senate moved to block any such military intervention. Thus it was with a sinking heart that President Ford watched the North Vietnamese crush the South within 2 years.